help you to crack the code of your sleeping dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening, I have two dreams, but three sections. There's one dream, and then there's parts one and two of another dream. Um, Very different again, but we'll see what the connection is between them. The first dream, where the dreamer had gone to a martial arts class and afterwards spoke to a friend that was there, a female friend, and said that he had really competed a lot during the session, but she said that she hadn't managed to participate at all because she had been looking after a merchandise. The dream turned are not by conventional means, but by climbing down out of this space where this class was being held onto a glass roof that had been erected over a bear pit underpass. Wow, that's a lot there. But this apparently the abseiling or walking off on this glass roof down over a bear pit, or what had been a bear pit. But he walks across that and the dream ends. That's dream number one. Part one of dream number two, the dreamer was down at the local shops looking at new washing machines. And there was a woman who was there who either was or reminded the dreamer of a client at work, a difficult client at that, and another lady who was a neighbor who lived opposite the dreamer were agitating me, and that's the word he actually used, which is rather funny when you think about washing machines. But that these two women were kind of nagging at him to buy a washing machine. Now, following that, the difficult lady actually offered the dream to buy the washing machine for the dreamer, and could stay at her that he could stay at her house. Now, we'll come back to that. But anyway, he agrees to stay at the lady's house, and lets himself in. And finding himself alone, he falls asleep. And suddenly, at some point, was woken up by a voice coming from somewhere in the house that sounded like someone he knew, someone familiar. Then the second part of this dream, the dreamer found himself in the street, but in what may have been a wealthy area in Iran or the UK, under a far-right government. Now, the dreamer was worried about his internet usage being observed or monitored, and felt that he needed to remove a black box that was on the lamppost outside of his house because it was recording his activities. So he's decided he's going to remove this black box from near his house, and a neighbor, an Asian man who lived across the way, offered to lend the dreamer a ladder to be able to reach this black box. Now, the dreamer says that he realized that this would actually be quite risky for his neighbor, because he would definitely be caught out and the man would become his accomplice. And there, the second part of the second dream ends. Now, as you can well imagine, there is a lot of stuff going on in here. I mean, some stuff I even, before I went on air, a few minutes ago, there were other things that I picked up. But the first thing that I will say is that in these dreams, it would appear, and I'd have to ask the dreamer about that, but it would appear that the therapist, i.e. me, though I'm not acting technically as a therapist in this case, is appearing in the dream. And that will happen. When I worked as doing counseling work, um, clients would dream, but it was almost as if they were dreaming to be able to provide me with information that I could use to help them. So I have to ask the question: is the lady in the first dream who couldn't get involved in martial arts was busy with the merchandise stall was actually me, because I've been quite busy lately. So there are times where clients will seem to dream for their therapist, as if the unconscious mind is trying to prompt them or give them information, either to say yes, you're on the right track, or no, you're completely off with the fairies, you've got it wrong. And that does happen. The unconscious mind will definitely leave, I call them breadcrumbs, to be able to prompt the dreamer or the person working with the dreamer, in this case me, with clues as to, are we heading in the right direction or not. So there was that, the first thing. Now, the one of the first things that impressions that came to me about this dream was when I read about the glass glass roof, and the expressions "people in glass houses don't throw stones" came to me. Glass ceiling, that in terms of business, you hit the glass ceiling, you can't go further, because of whatever. But what's interesting about this is that the dreamer actually walks above this glass roof or glass ceiling, so that, as if it's in that case, is not subject to it. It doesn't affect him in any way. Now, I just wonder if there may be something perhaps work related here with regard to glass ceilings or glass roofs, and being, how shall I say, being a bit cautious, maybe being socially aware of what you can and can't say, like people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, kind of thing. But there's something about that, but that's for the dreamer to decide. Now, the dreamer leaves this academy where he was at this martial arts class, not by any conventional means. Instead of walking out the door or going downstairs, he walks across this roof, this glass roof, to go downwards towards his car. So I have to assume that it was up at a higher level, and he went down over this glass roof to get to his car. Now, cars are and other modes of transport can represent different things in our dreams depending on context. But a car usually will mean that a person is acting under their own steam. They're acting with self-agency rather than being driven around or being walking on foot. They have some power behind them to get moving, but it's self-directed. So that's the first dream. Now, part one of the second dream, there's a features a washing machine. Now, there were two women that are urging the dreamer to buy a washing machine. And the expression that popped into my head with this was about airing dirty laundry or cleaning dirty laundry or airing your dirty laundry in public, things along those lines. Now, the dreamer said that the one of the women reminded him of a difficult client at work. Now, what is it about this woman, that reminds him of this client, or what is it about that client that is evoked by this woman? What feelings or thoughts are evoked by that person? The other woman is a neighbor who lives across the street, who's also urging him to buy a washing machine. No particular reason why they're so keen for him to buy a washing machine. And I just wonder if there's there's something about washing or cleansing or something with perhaps that needs to be cleaned up somewhere. Now, funnily enough, this difficult woman, despite being difficult, offers not only to buy the washing machine for the dreamer, but to allow him to stay in her house until it's delivered. Now, that there's why would he have to stay at her house to wait for this washing machine? What is the connection between this woman, this washing machine, and the dreamer? It would seem to me that perhaps the washing machine is actually a metaphor for something. What only the dreamer can determine, but that there's a willingness on the part of the dreamer to to submit to this woman's request or suggestion or offer, however you want to look at it, and hang out in her house until this machine is delivered, whenever that may be. There's It's just what is it about this woman that encourages him to accept her offer? What's going on there? Now, the dreamer actually enters this woman's home and decides that he's going to catch 40 winks while he's there. So despite that this woman being difficult, she's generous, apparently, trusting to let somebody who's more or less a stranger, not an intimate person or friend, into her home. And he feels comfortable enough there to actually rest and fall asleep, which is quite interesting, despite the fact that this woman was supposedly difficult. But the dreamer was eventually woke. The dreamer was eventually woke up to the sound of a familiar voice. Now, what was the relationship with this person or this voice? Who was it? Is it family? Is it friend? Is it somebody in actual waking life? But whoever it was, the dreamer says that the voice was a familiar one, and therefore, just as he slept easily and comfortably, he awoke easily and comfortably. How does the dreamer feel about that? What is this person that called to him, or woke him up? What does that person evoke for the dreamer? So that's the end of the first part of dream number 2. Now, the second part, the dreamer is in the wealthy part of town, either in Iran or the UK. Interesting. Why these two countries are designated as wealthy as opposed to other countries, and wealth in terms of what? What does that mean to wealthy countries? But wherever it was, apparently it was in a part of town that was quite chic, quite expensive. The rub was that it's controlled by a far right wing government. And what does that mean to the dreamer? Now, the dreamer, this may be a reflection of current political events, and it's some of that is kind of being expressed in a smokestack kind of way in the dream. But in a larger sense or wider sense, what does that mean, a far right government, to the dreamer? And this fear of being bugged, or having his internet usage being monitored. Now, could that refer to work? Because these days, employers are looking very closely, or were until lockdown anyway, looking very closely at what their employees were doing online, which is why we have so many stats about how many hours people spend on Facebook at work. Now, the other thing that occurred to me is that this could also be, in a wider context, maybe referring to the COVID-19, because this thing of fearful of being monitored, but what came into my mind was fearful of being bugged. Bugged, like bug, like COVID. So there may be some concerns about the virus and far right government. I mean, we think of the governments that have been very stringent and very right wing about locking their citizens down to get a control of the virus, particularly in Asia. So there may be some connection there with regard to anxieties or fears about the virus. Now, there was also a black box mentioned, this black box that was outside the dreamer's home on a lamppost that he felt was recording his activities. Now, I think of black boxes generally when we think of airplanes and air crashes. Now, in this sense, it's a recording unit, which isn't actually black, by the way. They're usually bright red or something. But anyway, this black box he felt he had to remove in order not to have his activities online monitored. Now, again, I wonder if there's something with regard to work about that that may be being expressed, or if perhaps there's something else where the dreamer may feel that he's being watched or observed in some way. Now, there was a neighbor, again, another neighbor appears here, this time a man who lives across the street, who owned this box from the lamppost. This was despite the risk of being arrested, I suppose, by this far right-wing government. Now, one of my first questions was why? Why was this man felt compelled to help? Was he just being neighborly, or was there some other reason? And again, it goes back to the prior remarks that I made about this possibly being something to do with anxiety about the coronavirus, because the man happens to be Asian, and that may be incidental. But dreams are very specific, and if an image of some kind appears in a dream, it's because it's expressing something in the dreamer's psyche. So there's something about that gentleman what does that gentleman evoke for the dreamer? Now, is there an actual relationship in waking life with a neighbor or nearby for the dreamer? Perhaps the letter that the going to lend to the dreamer enabled him to ascend. So there in the first dream, we had him descending to his car and driving off, as we assume. And now somebody offering him a ladder to move up again, move up a level. Now, the one remark that struck me particularly was that the dreamer says it was inevitable that he was going to get caught removing this black box. Now, why does the dreamer feel that this was inevitable? I mean, if you did it in the dead of night, I mean, supposedly it would be less likely that you would get caught. But what is it about inevitable? Almost as if, is there a willingness almost to be caught? It's a question. Now, where I would ask at this point, where in the dreamer's life does he feel that he'll be caught by someone or something, and that he couldn't get help because if he did, the man would be complicit, the neighbor that is, would be complicit in aiding and abetting, if you will, or looked at a slightly different way, in giving aid and comfort to the enemy, is another expression that popped up in my head. And I would have to ask at that point, who or what is the enemy here? There could be a number of candidates that fit the bill, but what exactly is the where is this adversary that's being fought against, or who is the adversary? Now, to look at these three dreams, they seem very disparate, to say the least. But there is actually a thread that links all of them, and then the first was, like I said, it was a message to the person working with the dream, as to what was kind of to give an update, if you will, as to what was going on. But you have going up, you have descending in the first dream, you have a cleaning or clearing in the second dream. So, you're coming down from the heights, you're coming down to earth, you're kind of clearing stuff out with the washing machine to wash stuff, make it clean. And then you're talking about getting rid of something again in the two dreams, the two-part dream. You're talking about getting rid of something, getting rid of this black box, getting rid of a bit of restrictions, perhaps. And to do that, you have to go up onto the ladder. So there's something about descending to a lower level, being at ground level, and then ascending again to a higher level that seems to run through this. And there's also this insistent on people, or neighbors offering assistance. And there's assistance with regard to the washing machines, and there's assistance offered by a neighbor again. And at the micro level, it could very well be talking about relationships in the dreamer's life. But if you expand that out a bit in light of global, the thing about people reaching out from across the street, literally from across the street these days, or from across the world, because we have to maintain our distance. And there's something about that, I think, that may be a reflection of just current reality at the moment. And the fact that we are all online a lot more these days, because we can't have physical contact, or very limited physical contact with each other, despite the easing of lockdown. So there's something about relationships here, and who's a neighbor, I guess, maybe. I mean, because a strange woman who he has a passing acquaintance with invites him into her home, which is these days quite unusual. It's generally not done, to invite near strangers into your intimate space. Yet the dreamer felt that he was able to do that, and not only do that, but feel comfortable enough to fall asleep. And there's something about that, trusting to the kindness of strangers, if you will, being able to trust others and feel assured despite the lack of strength. So things that I managed to pull out of this, and I do hope that the dreamer finds that his thoughts are stimulated as to what these different elements can mean. There's one other thing that I discovered quite late, as I said, literally before going on air, is that this bear pit, again, another level, because this glass roof was over a bear pit, which was an underpass. So again, you're talking about descending, or walking over something that was underneath, that was descending. And the bear pit made me think of activities like bear baiting that used to be very popular, and in some places still is popular, where bears are actually fighting for people's entertainment, and it's usually an enclosure with a high fence so that the bears can't escape or harm anyone. So I just wonder if there's somewhere in the dreamer's life where he's feeling that he's perhaps in a bear pit, or there's some kind of bear baiting that's going on. It can also represent, to a certain extent, perhaps his martial arts class and competing with others, because it is a fight, even though it may be not with the intent to harm. It is a form of fighting. It's a martial art after all. And maybe that's where the bear pit might fit in with this. So after that late flurry, that's my thoughts on these dreams. And I hope the dreamer found that useful. And I hope you found uh, the taking apart of a dream useful in terms of helping you to understand your own dreams. But if you do need help with that, you can always contact me. And if you're just not sleeping well in general, my Sleep Easy Essence, it's amazing. I'm telling you. And it's not just me saying it, it's other people who are taking it and ordering it. It's flying out the door these days. If you want to find out more, you can go to my online store and find out about Sleep Easy Essence, or you can contact me at www.meetingwithsheila.com. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Have a fantastic rest of the week, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.